Hey folks, Phil Gallagher here for another Legacy League. This is another one of those times where I'm recording really early in the so excuse the slightly lower vocals than normal. Alright, today we're playing with Dalton S's deck list. Well, let me rephrase that. Dalton S submitted a Ninja's deck list and said, feel free to change this how you want. I just want to see some sweet ninjutsu action. And when I looked at this deck list, here's what I saw. Previously, when I played Ninja, when I played the Bug Ninjas deck, and this was probably 2 or 3 months ago at this point, I noticed that the deck was tripping over its own mana base quite a bit, and I expected the same sort of thing to happen here. Let me show you what I mean. So this deck has multiple scrub lands and a basic swamp, yet it also has things like Brainstorm and Ponder, right, that are really important to cast early, and those cards don't cast it. And generally speaking, a lot of the white cards that are in this deck aren't super high impact, I win the game cards, right? Like, Teferi is a great card. It makes your counter spells better, but Teferi doesn't actually kill your opponent, right? It gives you some outs to some things that might be problematic, like, say, Chalice of the Void, for example, but this card doesn't win you the game. Similarly, are Kaya and Disenchant really worth making your mana that much worse? One of the strengths of a deck like Ninja's is that its mana base can be pretty solid. Like, if you get to play with, 4, 5, 6 basics in your legacy deck list, like, that gives you relative immunity to things like Wasteland and Blood Moon and back to basics. And so when I looked at this deck list, I thought this deck is going to lose a couple rounds to its own mana at some point. And so I went to the Legacy 5.0 deck list dumps from this week, and wouldn't you know it, I found that my fellow podcaster Boshnroll had just 5.0'd with ninjas. So that's incredibly that's incredibly fortuitous timing. And so I figured I would pull his deck list and use that as my starting point for this league. I do want to say before we get going here, I made one budgetary substitution because it's early in the morning. I didn't want to bother any of my friends. So this one daze that's in the sideboard should really be a Force of Negation, but that's an $85 card on Magic Online, and I didn't want to deal with hustling people at 6 in the morning. So let's take a look at the mana base to start with. Look at that. Look at that beautiful thing. 7 basic lands and just so many fetches behind them. 8 of these 9 fetches can just fetch either one of the dual lands. That's just so awesome. The mana base of this deck is just solid. Notably, there is an 18 land here. I don't know how I feel about this one. Like, it's a land that costs you some life most of the time that you use it as a land. And super late game, it becomes something that you can play if you flood out. I don't know that this card is actually good. And it may be that when Brian releases his video, he says, yes, you get restoration, should have just been another fetch land or something like that. But we'll try it out as is and see how it fares. Generally speaking, other notables here. There's a Clean to Dust in the main deck, and while this card might not look amazing, I'd like to remind everyone that Uro is everywhere in Legacy right now, and having a main deck way to deal with an Uro, because like it's going to be bigger than most of your bodies, is really important. For anyone who hasn't seen the Ninjas deck in action before, the general game plan is you use cheap creatures that are difficult or impossible to block to to get through, and then you turn it into a ninja using the ninjutsu ability. That returns that cheap creature back to your hand. These ninjas often end up drawing you cards, and you get more ninjas with them, and things kind of spiral out of control. As far as the sideboard goes here, it's really a black-based sideboard with Surgicals and Thoughtseizes forming your primary plan versus combo decks Then you have a pile of things that can hate on small-ish creatures for matchups like, say, Death and Taxes or Elves. Because you run so many basics, you can have a back to basics heavy sideboard plan, which I am a pretty big fan of. Um, Brian Boshnroll has said that he thinks that Ninjas has the possibility to be the best tempo deck in the sort of like post-ban legacy world. And I know he has 5-0'd with Ninjas recently in both Legacy and in Modern. So let's see how this deck feels in action. The folks watching this on YouTube, if you would throw me a like or a comment on the video at some point, that sort of thing is really appreciated and helps out with the old algorithm getting my videos to more Legacy fans. Alright, let's battle. Okay, so I have my opening hand here, and I actually think this one's a mulligan. I know Brian is the biggest fan of, like, one land ponder, that's a keep. But if we look at this hand needs two different things in order to function. It needs both a ninja and a second land. Otherwise, this hand doesn't really, take off. I think I'm going to go ahead and mulligan this one. I like this hand much better. I think I'm going to go ahead and bin the redundant Yuriko here. We're hoping to play against a control deck here because my hand is not fast, but it has a lot of just like raw card advantage. All right, that is probably indicative of some sort of Miracles style deck, so it looks like we're probably getting our wish. Buckle up. This is going to be a long one in all likelihood. That's not a bad draw. Because my opponent just has like Swords to Plowshares mana available, I don't actually think I'm going to ninjutsu this in. I think I'm just going to take my guaranteed 1 point of damage. And if my opponent decides to Swords to Plowshares a Baleful Strix, I get sick value. Nope, that's fine. My mana requirements are pretty easy in this deck. I'm going to just go ahead and grab basic Swamp here. And just play out the Yuriko. This allows me to play around a game 1 back to basics a little bit better. I'm not, like, again, super concerned about that, but it's pretty free for me to do so. Possible, I should have just bounced the Baleful Strix, because the Baleful Strix will draw me another card later, and I should have just gotten that value engine going. But this seemed fine to me. So now what I need to be thinking about is, like, specifically, like, Brainstorm Indeterminus, but my opponent just shuffled there. I think that's fine. Alright, so this is only unblocked creatures. This is not unblocked. We're still on attackers. I think I'm just going to go this route. This lets me get a ninja in, draw a card, and then redeploy Baleful Strix. I don't think I want to use my Force of Negation for a single target removal spell. Now we're in Declare Blockers. You'll love to see that. And now we have Force of Negation for sort of the, the real scary stuff that can come down, the Jace, something that gives Monarch, something of that general nature. Let's start with Strix, maybe. I think I'm just going to call that good for a turn. I don't want to overcommit to the board because Terminus is one of the best ways that my opponent can get back into the game. And if I can avoid situations where I get Terminus and lose more than 2 creatures, that's ideal. I'll probably still end of turn Brazen Borrower though, because that represents so much pressure. And my opponent won't be able to Terminus on their turn, and I'll still have Force of Negation on my turn to counter Terminus. But then I wouldn't put any more creatures into play from there, I don't think. Maybe that's even just greedy though. Like, the stuff that I have in play is good. Yeah, let's not, because like Terminus into Force of Will is very good for my opponent. That's insane. Very happy with all of these cards. Put back Fatal Push. And I'll redraw the Ponder off one of my triggers here. So this is Thopter's Servos, so this doesn't have an immediate interaction with either one of these, so I can go ahead and just crash in. I will let you brainstorm, and then I'll fight over the Terminus itself, assuming that it's coming. Mana base feels real smooth this game, though. Like, this is looking good. This will specifically exile the Terminus so that my opponent can't just get it back via fetch land later. Yeah. That's a hell of a stack. Oh, still an end of combat, my bad. So I can turn this Changeling Outcast into a 4/4 at instant speed at any time, which is pretty dope considering that my opponent is at 12. This card can also just create servos. Inconvenient, but okay. I assume the Retrofitter Foundry goes, leaving me with Changeling Outcast. Yep. That's fine. Like, this is going to draw me cards. Think it's okay to just fire this off here. Go with those two back. And call it a turn. I will be fetching those away. I just want more ninjas, more Yurikos, more counter spells at this point. What is this? So, as a general rule of thumb, when I see something I haven't seen before, and I ask myself, is that card good? I counter it just in case. Like, if this just goes and puts an Entreat the Angels on top, for example, I am fucked. I didn't really want to trade two cards here. I wanted to, like, untap and hardcast that Force of Will. But I think that card is just way too dangerous. That's cool tech from my opponent. Find our Retrofitter Foundry. Ponder lets me look at two cards for the cost of a mana. I'm gonna go ahead and take that since I have so much mana. Lets me look at the third card down, and then it lets me look at a random shuffled card. um, is it okay drawing those other two cards to pick up another ninja? I think so. This is where things start looking juicy. So in case you haven't seen this interaction before, the ingenious infiltrators trigger for each one of them. Not just like, you don't draw 2, you draw 4, because this is whenever a ninja, and I have 2 ninjas. Do I play the Strix? I think I want to play the Strix to try to find like a daze, because then I would be better at playing around a hard cast terminus. All right, the Hail Mary brainstorm for the blind terminus. And it was not a hit. All right, so what do I have for a nice grindy control deck like Miracles? Not that much, honestly. I'll probably play the Liliana. Might consider Surgical. Like Surgical on Swords of Plowshares or Terminus is a big game as things go really, really long. And the reason why I'm even thinking about that is specifically because I have these fatal pushes and murderous cuts that are unlikely to have very many targets. It looks like my opponent is playing straight blue-white Miracles, so I don't have to worry about Uro. And that means that like I could be dealing with some Snapcaster mages, you know, a Vendilion, Click Up, Raise, and Borrower, stuff of that nature, but not anything that's probably answer or die. And so because of that, I'm going to board most or all of these cards out, and I'm leaning towards all. And that means I think that these surgicals are fine. I am not really a big fan of like, hey, let's bring in surgicals for the fair matchup. But if I just get to keep drawing cards, like I'm going to get a planeswalker activation worth of value out of my stuff every single turn. So I think I like doing something like this that allows me to punch a hole and really get in there. Notably, if this daze was a force of negation, I would board that in here. But it's not, because hashtag budget. Now, how do we get the Liliana in here? Is the answer just that I go down a daze on the draw? That very well might be the answer. 2 surgical feels like about the right number. Like, I don't want the surgical to be a primary part of my game plan, but in the mid game, I would like to be able to just shut off all of that removal. So let's try this. It's a hand very similar to the one I mulliganed last time, where the hand doesn't have a source of card advantage. It's only missing that one thing, so I could potentially use Brainstorm to sort out this hand. But like Brainstorm's job with this hand is probably putting back these 2 cards specifically. And I think I can just find something more stable. Honestly, this is probably fine. I just toss back this land. I need to find a creature to play on turn 2. Is Retrofitter Foundry good enough that I pivot? I think so. Like, resolving one of those means that all of my medium threats, well, I don't even know what I get to call them medium, all my Ornithopters and Changelings become real threats. And I can just fetch away my third card down and not draw that because I know I don't want it. I can play this game super patiently with a Retrofitter Foundry and just like make servos and thopters and such and try to outgrind my opponent that way. I'm always going to have to keep Entreat the Angels on the back of my mind. Does this matter? This doesn't matter right now. Like I just have like 4 drops and 3 drops in hand. But I don't see myself winning this game quickly, and so I am going to go ahead and fight over this. Alright, correction. Opponent is not straight blue-white miracles. They have a splash. Before my opponent has time to set up their library, I will go ahead and try to fire off this brainstorm. There's a decent chance that my opponent just blind hits. This is the draw thing. Oh shit, that's really good. That takes my Retrofitter Foundry. Alright, so is it more important to put a creature into play or try to find an answer to the charm? I think try to find an answer to the charm. Boshnroll, let's just look at 4 cards here. Uh-oh. This is officially no bueno. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. It's an instant, so they can just like do it on my turn, but so that I don't get an activation out of it, they might do it now. Yet. Yeah. That's bad. So now the Miracles deck can just like hold up mana every turn for the rest. Hold up mana for every turn for the rest of the game. And this also just makes chump blockers so my ninjas don't get through. I think I just literally lose my own Retrofitter Foundry here. Like that alongside the counterbalance is pretty rough. I'll play a couple turns out to see how this feels. But I think I'm donezo. Opponent has some sick tech in their deck. Julian's podcast, Everyday Eternal, talked about this card probably 3 or 4 episodes back now. Don't have a brainstorm to put your Force at Will on top and just like savage me. I think if they just figure out to just make a blocker here. My position is awful. They figured it out. Alright. I know a Flooded Strand is on top of my opponent's library right now. I'm going to take this opportunity to fire off a Brainstorm. Just while I know it's pretty likely to resolve. I'm going to get to the point where I can hardcast this. I think I keep it. Yeah. Like, now I need to deploy the Baleful Strix so that I have something that can get through. Means I start leaning harder into something. Yikes. My opponent can just, like, turn that into a flying blocker. I think as soon as my opponent shows me, like, one more thing, I am comfortable conceding. This is something that's cool to play towards, but I feel just so woefully behind right now. You know, my opponent even, like, understands the play patterns associated with Retrofitter Foundry 2. So, like, they can attack, like, very cleanly with this, because they can just sacrifice it to make a flyer to block my creature. They don't need to leave this back. My opponent's playing with good patience here. Now they get to just turn it into a 4/4. Are they waiting to pay costs on? Oh. Alright, going full aggro now. So about every other turn, they're gonna grab a 4/4. Alright, I feel like I've seen enough to just say, like, I'm going down here. That's okay. Okay, so I have another hand that's missing things, but I think this one's actually fine. I get to Brainstorm on turn 2 with a Shuffle. Maybe it's not fine. Like, how... I don't have the important cards for the matchup here. Like, I don't have my things that draw cards. Like, I could Brainstorm on turn 1, but then I don't get maximum Shuffle value out of it. Wonder if I'm just mulliganing too aggressively with this deck. Like, I know what I want to be doing, and this hand doesn't do that. It has the potential to do it. I think this Brainstorm flops. I just, like, lose. No. I'm gonna ship. Yeah, see, like, this hand, this is what I want to be doing. Maybe this is a hand where I don't get to force a will. Excuse me. So on my opponent's turn, I'm going to have to make a choice. I'm going to have to choose whether I want a 4/4 or whether I just want to be able to put in a ninja if I draw one. I think I will be choosing the 4/4, but I'm not 100% sure on that. If I grab the 4/4 and my opponent goes for a Swords to Plowshares, I will just daze. Better than a Delver start. Make 1/1 in daze, or return land to daze so that I can play Angeling Outcast and then just have 8 power in play. I think I am the beatdown. I think I just love the idea of having 8 power in play this early. Fine with getting Underground Sea? Yeah, I showed my opponent a billion basics. I don't think they're going to have something like a back to basics in play. For this exact scenario, I wish I had not played my fetch land. But for a lot of other scenarios where I just like, no, maybe I shouldn't have played the fetch land at all, because like if I didn't do anything else, I would have just activated Retrofit or Foundry. Yeah, I think I should have just played my other land. Oh, I only have one duel. That means I'm getting Swamp. So I am just going to have my opponent on a 2-turn clock. This is a really... Fuck me. I'm upset. I'm actively upset. They did shuffle my library, so that's good news for me. But that blind Terminus is just backbreaking. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, you just gotta move past it. I'm not tilted, but that's real frustrating. That's the miracle mechanic playing as intended. Can't get a break, huh? Like a Yuriko, please? Alright, well. I can get a little bit of a break. I think I play the... Well... Let's get cute. Let's get cute. So in response to my Yuriko trigger, I'm going to go ahead and brainstorm. And let's like find a Force of Will to put on top of the library. And that will make me feel warm and fuzzy. Oh yeah. Get lava axed. What a swing. Now, notably, if my opponent can just Swords to Plowshares the Yuriko in this turn cycle, I am in big trouble. Because my next card is not a threat either. I can try to punch a hole with Thoughtseize, but this is not the optimal point of the game for Thoughtseize. I wanted that early. Yeah. Didn't I have another land? There was a Prismatic Vista that I put back, right? I'm very confused about what happened there. I don't have time to go back and look at the chat logs to figure that out. Yeah, you can have the 2/2. That's fine. That is not worth a Force of Will, considering other things that could come in the... God damn it. In the future. Yeah, I put 2 cards back with Brainstorm. Put Force of Will, and then I put a land below that. And I did not fetch. I think that's a bug. Please let me know if I am missing something. But that seems weird. Does Yuriko make you like shuffle or something and I'm just missing some part of that ability? No? Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. I don't want multiple of those. I'm going to go ahead and just shuffle. That's a fantastic draw. Like, that not only kills the Snapcaster, but that's also a very sticky threat that my opponent probably can't answer easily. There's going to be a Council's Judgment in there. It's going to be hard for them to attack that down. See if they have a Force of Will or Force of Negation for it. Nope. So we'll start by killing that. And then in future turns, I can consider activating this to return a creature. I think it's just going to go like straight to the moon, and I'm just going to tick that up all the way. But I've been wrong before. Brazen Borrower here is a lot of power. think I don't return it. I think I just take that damage. Alright, fetch lands are off. I think I will go ahead and commit another creature to the board. I think I'm comfortable doing that. That means that I can just play around a Swords to Plowshares. Two lethal threats plus a Liliana ultimate incoming. Opponent needs, like, Entreat the Angels level cards. What a match, though. What a match. This was that same game where I got Blind Terminist, right? Like, super happy to take this one down. What a game. Okay, I am on the draw with a slightly suboptimal hand in that I need a second land in order to function. Taking a quick look at the deck list here, I have 16 lands to hit, plus 8 cantrips to hit, plus a Retrofitter Foundry that would all probably make this pretty good. My opponent has also mulligan to 6, and I have a Force of Will. I think I'm going to keep this one. Slightly awkward, though. I'm finding myself dissatisfied with a lot of the opening hands that I'm seeing in one way or another. And I'm wondering, is that me? This is Loam. I probably don't want to counter this. This is lands. I really want to counter this. My opponent is on 5. I'm going to take a gamble here. If this is lands, I might legitimately knock them off of their mana sources. All right. Do I get Underground Sea? Swamp doesn't cast Daze. That's really awkward. I think I do. My opponent's on 2 cards. I have a lot of basics that I can draw later for stability, but I think for the now, I just need the Underground Sea. If my opponent doesn't have another land and they do have a Life from the Loam, I get to, like, daze that and buy myself some time before stuff starts going off. And the daze also lets me hit a Valakut Exploration this turn, which is also big game. That's incredibly good against me right now. I need 2 mana for this, and I'm short on mana anyway. Alright. I have been max punished. Yeah, this game is over. I don't think I regret my decision. Like, the Daze is so important for stopping Valakut Exploration, which is one of those cards like Sylvan Library that, like, I'm probably not beating if it resolves. Like, maybe I'm supposed to... Like, I can jump block for a couple of turns. I'm not getting out of this. Well, actually, my opponent is at 9. Maybe there is a world. This is 8. First level of Retrofitter Foundry. Not the flyer, the middle level is. I'm ready. Oh, they're still in combat damage. Alright. My decisions did not line up well against what my opponent had. I opted to fight over the Mox, thinking that I might be able to stick my opponent on lands like Rashadenport, Dark Depths, and Thespian Stage that don't actually allow them to cast their cards, and that would give me time to draw out of my kind of clunky start. I followed that off by grabbing a Wasteland to play around Valakut Exploration. Or sorry, by grabbing an Underground Sea, which plays into Wasteland but plays around Valakut Exploration better. My decisions just didn't work out, and that's fine. So I obviously want the surgical extractions here. And I obviously want the back to basics here. I think that's probably about all I'm going to get to board in, just in terms of number of slots. I think I'll just board out the Fatal Pushes and the Murderous Cuts, operating under the assumption that, like, I can probably just ignore a Tireless Tracker if the game goes really long by chump blocking, or by, like, getting through with something that's unblockable. I also don't really love Daze, though. Maybe I just, like, don't Daze. Okay, what happens if I don't Daze? If I don't Daze, I could Thoughtseize on the play. I don't hate that. Thoughtseize plus Surgical is always pretty hot. Is there anything that's just, like, objectively bad that I should take out to have access to one card that beats a Tireless Tracker? Nah, I think I'm good with this. Keep. I think I keep this and assume that this game goes a little slow. Since I don't have a ninja, I think it's totally fine to just lead on Thoughtseize. Punishing Fire is pretty good against what I've got going on, so is Drop a Honey, but I think just... decreasing their number of win conditions is pretty great, and I don't think I need to surgical this immediately. Like, until they're threatening enough mana to actually cast a Valakut Exploration, I don't need to surgical it. So on their next turn in their draw step, it will go ahead and surgical Valakut Exploration. These cards aren't bad. Not exactly what I'm looking for. Like, I want a big booty ninja right now, but this should help me find it. Don't think I shuffle here. I will go ahead and play out an Ornithopter. My opponent wants to Punishing Fire that right now. I think I'm good with that not being in their hand. That gives me a chance to surgical that if I find a surgical later. And makes it so that I can play out a Baleful Strix next turn, potentially. Alright. Suppose I will grab a snip of this. I can hang out over here. Alright, anything super noteworthy? Whole bunch of Force of Vigors. Only one life from the Loam. Tabernacle, 2 Maze of Ith. Right, crop rotation, drop of honey. Force of Vigor. I think this is a shuffle. Yes. Oh, I did this in the wrong order. I should have played Changeling Outcast first, and then Retrofitter Foundry second, so that in response to Force of Vigor, I can make a 4/4. That was a mistake on my end. Oh, but opponent did not catch it. How does Drop of Honey work with this? Okay, so there's a colon after the sacrifice, so I can get rid of a Drop of Honey by sacrificing my Changeling Outcast. Beautiful. Did not get Force of Vigor here. If I get Force of Vigor here. That pitches the crop rotation. My opponent have a second crop rotation. They're thinking about whether they want to get rid of basic force. That is indeed what they're thinking about. What are they going to get? Are they going to grab a Maze of Ith? A Tabernacle? Okay. That's fine. My opponent currently does not have the mana to return Punishing Fire. Well, let me rephrase. My opponent currently doesn't have the mana to return Punishing Fire and cast it in the same turn cycle, so it currently costs them a turn and a half worth of mana to do anything with a Punishing Fire. And I think that's fine. That now means that my smaller creatures are in trouble. This draws me a card, so I'm fine with running through that here. And that's one of my best draws. So now all my opponent's mana is going to go towards keeping the Retrofitter Foundry in check. Note, I could use the Force of Will here to like try to work towards getting a 4/4, but I think that's very actively bad. Oh, that though, that gets Force of Willed. And brainstorm and try to find a ninja here. A little bad if I miss, but insanely good if I hit. Miss. Get a 4/4 though, and then I can get another 4/4. These cards are fine. Damn. I'm not good at answering Merit Lodge. How do I win? How do I win? Brazen Borrower is how I win. The top card of my library is an Ornithopter. Card below that is a fetch. I have already used Baleful Strix. That doesn't buy a turn. Well, I guess what I need to do is buy as many turns as I can
via Thopters. And then find Brazen Borrower. Looking bad. I'll block with an Ornithopter. I'll sacrifice that and create a 4/4. And I end up being just short here. So I can make one more Thopter. I can turn this into a Thopter, but as long as my opponent plays around it properly. Like, they just Punishing Fire it, and I'm done for. I need to hold a card in hand to bluff that I have something. Now my opponent needs to just not mess up. Yep. GG. I wonder if there was a line there where I don't sit back on the second Thopter in that first turn cycle, and I instead turn the Changeling Outcast into a 4/4. That gets me 3 more damage. I would need 4. That would have also involved attacking with the Thopter that I left back, which I don't think I can do because I need 2 bodies in the way of the Merit Lodge. And then I don't get as many chump blocks later. There might have been a winning line there. Or there might have been a line that could have gotten me closer. But I think I just needed one more card. Okay, this has a single swamp and a bunch of blue cards. This one needs to go back. This is technically a 2-land hand. This cost me 4 life. Alright, what doesn't fit? Probably the Brainstorm. I am going to be susceptible to Wasteland this game anyway, since I have this Seagate Restoration thing. And so I think that means that turn 1 is Underground Sea. Getting the Underground Sea here means that if I spike a fetch land in the next couple of turns, I can go and like brainstorm plus shuffle. Opponent's a fan of the content. Oh, if we are just like playing against burn, the lightning bolt that I do to myself is rough. There was an interesting bump in the night burn deck list in the 5.0 deck list dump that was just published. It had black for bump in the night, I think, Street Wraith, and Scourge of the Skyclaves. Very happy to draw this. I'm going to try to hold off on brainstorming for a little bit. Like to get a little bit deeper. I really don't want to get brainstorm locked versus burn. I think Seagate Restoration probably ends up pitching to Force of Will, but I'm not sure. I need a ninja, or preferably a retrofitter foundry. Yeah, that's fine. It just like stares at the Baleful Strix or trades with the Baleful Strix. Deal. All right. This turn's really hard to play. So I can go Lightning Bolt myself, play an end of turn Brazen Borrower. I can brainstorm and try to find a ninja. If I get brainstorm locked, that's horrendous. The thing about like paying life to Brazen Borrower is that my opponent's hand is probably full of lightning bolts and equivalents. I think this is the highest upside play here. I'm going to be ponder shuffling. I think this goes back because I just like drew another land. And then I don't know that I'm going to have things to pitch for the second Force of Will. I don't have enough pressure in play that I can just say, like, double forcing is fine. Double forcing wins me the game. I am going to do this and ponder. Specifically so that I can leave open Fatal Push. Because since my opponent attacked Monastery Swift Spear into Baleful Strix last turn, I kind of think they have another creature. I just gained 3 life. So much for the other creature. This turn, I'll just flash in Brazen Borrower. That's fine. If that gains me 3 more life, I'm good with it. It is turn 4. I'm at 13. Okay. Not great. Just okay. Free combat? Ah. I cast Ponder. I'm essentially just looking for another blue card for Force of Will. Oh no. Nope, nope, nope. Card that I now want the most is Brainstorm. My opponent is showing me that they don't have creatures currently, which means these fatal pushes are dead. I'm also probably not clocking anywhere close to fast enough to, oh god, to beat my opponent. Alright. I think the next spell that goes to my face, I just need to counter. Ow. Uh, can't cast that, right? Need to leave up Force of Will. I'm dead if my opponent has 2 castable spells. I'm taking 2 from the Vortex. I can counter 1. Counter any. On principle. On principle. God, those exquisite firecrafts were good. Okay. So I need a fast start. I think I'm going to start by looking at what I don't want from my main deck. I don't want Cling. I don't want Murderous Cut. Those things need to go. This Seagate Restoration should also probably just be boarded out. I cannot afford the 3 life cost of doing that. So can I bring in 3 cards? Kind of. Well, wait, hold on. Cling to Dust is slow, but there is the creature side of it that can gain me life. Alright, sorry, Cling to Dust. I do wish this was that Force of Negation there that I mentioned. Yeah, I am not well suited for the burn matchup. I can just keep a hand that makes a quick 4/4. That's pretty good for me. This hand doesn't do that, but it has the Cling to Dust, so hopefully I can counter or otherwise answer some creatures or get my own creatures killed and then like gain some life off that. Yeah. Yeah, this all is fine. There's thinking going on. So my opponent may be considering whether or not they want to leave up a lightning bolt for a ninja, which is legit. But everything that causes the lightning bolt to be pointed at my creatures instead of me is a big win for me. Now next turn, this Retrofitter Foundry can be played out, creating a 4/4, and then I can also Cling to Dust the Yuriko that's in my graveyard. Yeah, that's fine. Eidolon was the big thing that I didn't want to see this turn. um, that's tricky. There's varying levels of greed I can do here, where I try to like ponder for a land and do it all. I think I'm gonna do that level of greed. I need more mana than what I have access to right now. Great. Alright, so now the question is, do I go for the 4/4 or do I go for the Yuriko? I think 4/4 plus Cling to Dust is better than Yuriko plus 4/4 next turn, but it's real close. The issue is, like, I want to take the life gain from Cling to Dust now before my opponent drops a Sulfuric Vortex. Alright, just double checking creature, right? I can also consider not making the 4/4 immediately, because next turn I can put Yuriko in off Ornithopter and then create my 4/4 by replaying it. That could be better. My opponent plays something like a Smash to Smithereens, they'll force my hand and I'll make the 4/4, but I guess I can just make the 4/4 now, get my points of damage in. With this, it puts another creature into the graveyard for Cling to Dust. My 5th card, for that matter. This is 4 mana? It is 4 mana. I think I'm just gonna take this now. I've been skullcracked before in Legacy, and let me tell you, it does not feel good. Alright, opponent was starting to pay costs, so they have at least one other... Oh god. I don't think any of that is what I'm looking for. That's not really it either. Yeah, I'm looking to play this like attrition-based game, draw cards over time, grind out with Retrofitter Foundry, and my opponent is just sending damage after damage after damage to my face. I don't know how this is gonna go. Like, if they have 2 bolts, I am theoretically already dead. Not what I'm looking for. On multiple different fronts even. Now my opponent is gonna have 3 different cards to try and kill me with. Alright, don't have Fire Blast. Alright, so I can untap this, but that doesn't actually do me any good. I need 1 more mana for that. Alright, I need Yuriko to hit. I have 6 damage showing of the 7 needed. The Yuriko trigger hits. Any non-land card. I take this down. Please note that I did gain 6 life to cling to dust there, and it was still just that close. I'm not going to adjust my plan. I did not see creatures that game, but I assume that my opponent will probably board them back in on the play. Yeah, so notice here this clock is still ticking down. That is probably, well, up then down, then up then down, because like Moto things. But like, since that is happening, it's probably an indication that my opponent is adjusting their sideboard plan to have more creatures in on the play. I don't think I can play the Murderous Cut, though, because the Cling to Dust is so important. This hand is probably too slow. Like, it has an answer to a creature, which I like, but I have nothing to do with this Changeling Outcast and Ornithopter. My Ponder has to look for something to do with the 2 of them, and if I miss, I lose. Is it okay for me to keep this hand on the draw? How many outs am I looking at? 7 from the ninjas. 11. I can look at like 6 cards. I should be able to hit. I would love to hit now. I don't have to like actually think too much about my turn. I think I just intend on Fatal Pushing Swift Spear this turn. Like, I'll block with Ornithopter. My opponent doesn't cast anything great. If they do cast anything, I Fatal Push. So, does my opponent have a second land? If no, That means our hand is full of 15 points of bird. Maybe more. They've been real good at drawing exquisite firecraft. Oh, yes, 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 yes. I take 2 of these. I want the brainstorm more than the land. I'm going to take this value now. There's exquisite firecrafts that happen later that are hugely problematic for me. So I am just totally fine doing a 1-for-1 trade here that sets me back a little bit on mana. Because I don't actually need all that much mana in order to operate right now. I just like to find another daze if possible. No. Ornithopter is great. Like, actually factually great. Now I think I get to outpace my opponent. They get to attack for 4. Then I attack for 9. Then I attack for 12. Yeah, I don't know what my opponent is going to need here. Probably has to be a land drop this turn. Like, land drop, double 1-drop. GG and have a nice day. GG's, we got there. Whew. Alright, Retrofitter Foundry doing serious work here. I'm on the play here with an opening hand that is missing both a creature and something to do with it. I have Ponder and Brainstorm, though. Do I want to keep this hand and keep, like, a very slow hand? And this is one of those times where, like, I haven't played this deck enough to know the heuristics of, like, when you do and don't keep hands like this. And I don't think Ninjas is a traditional blue deck in many ways. Right? Like, you're not looking to sculpt the perfect hand a lot of times. Like, you're looking to assemble something. And I think if I want to have an easier time assembling something, I should keep an opening hand that actually has some piece in it. Like, Murderous Cut is going to be dead in a ton of matchups. I guess I can brainstorm it away. I think given how many cards I can theoretically draw in this deck, it's okay to go down a card in order to try to do something a little more objectively powerful. This hand I like. I'll put back the Murderous Cut. And I'll play Retrofitter on turn 1 so that I can ponder on turn 2 looking for something to feed to it. And then, like, if I need to just take 1 card off Ponder, I'll have the possibility of doing so. Alright. Trying to figure out exactly what I'm looking at here in terms of art. These, like, little mice? Little, like, artifact mice? This is, like, some sort of arm coming down to repair them? Is this what the servos look like? Or the servos little mice? Not, I'm not much of a lore person. I don't I don't follow that thing all that closely. I don't know for sure. I bet those are what the servos look like. Ponder's fine, but I would have dazed like a Delver there. Nope. Eh. I'm kind of in a do-nothing situation right now. I could be in a lot of trouble if my opponent just, like, drops a Tarmogoyf for a Sprite Dragon or whatever. Please. I think I'm just going to play this so that I can make a 1-1 without fetching. Oh, it's Show and Tell, it's not Delver. They've conveniently just played around days. We'll see. No. We'll see how long this staring match goes on for before my opponent just, like, casts something and I die. From their perspective, they might be thinking, like, oh, he doesn't have creatures. That must mean that he has a bunch of counter spells. No. No, it's just lands over here. Don't you worry. You're safe. See if my opponent, like, does something cute, like plays Intuition to shuffle. I guess I can stop it from hitting play this turn. And then draw Brazen Borrower. Bounce it back to their hand. I also just think they have the creature based on what's going on here. Yeah. This is no bueno. We're gonna hold this back. Like, this can theoretically gain me a bunch of life if they have, like, Grizzlebrand and not Emrakul. Please don't have the Emrakul too. Because I can just, like, block. You just have, like, Show and Tell too. That's no good. Alright, dead. So I think I'm going to go with this surgical Thoughtseize Days sort of plan. I can think about Liliana's Triumph. Alright, I don't want Cling, Fatal Push, and I think Murderous Cut is too narrow to actually want So that gives me almost all of my cuts immediately. Then just go with the Baleful Strix, I think. Like, there are these theoretical worlds where it's like, yeah, that kills a Grizzlebrand, but like the Grizzlebrand getting in play in and of itself is a huge, huge issue. Yeah. As an initial piece of disruption, plus a relatively fast clock and series of things that can be very, very good with me. For me, excuse me. Alright. Take half the combo. Take the only piece of manipulation. My opponent's deck is full of manipulation. I think I'm just going to go ahead and take half the combo here. If my opponent wants to use Lotus Petal and a Braid to beat an Ornithopter, I'll be okay with that. Next turn feels like a Yuriko turn to me, not a make a 4/4 turn. I will daze this. It's a 2-for-1. It costs my opponent a Braid and Lotus Petal. And then I get a card back out of this, plus some amount of additional damage. A Thoughtseize, not bad. I've already played my land. I'll recast the Ornithopter on the off chance that I draw another Ingenious Infiltrator, and then can just go ham on ninja triggers. That was bottom bottom. Yuriko hit for 2 last turn. What do we get this turn? Honestly, just getting any blue card here is so strong. Having both Thoughtseize and Force of Will is just awesome in terms of the utility that it provides and the number of things that I can fight against. That's a blue card. I might be seeing a Brainstorm here. Yep. That's fine. Like, I still have a Force of Will as a backup here. And if I had a Surgical Extraction, just shuffle my opponent's library right now. I'm going to go ahead and press my advantage here. I know my opponent's hand is literally just 3 lands right now. There's one unknown on top of their library. But, like, since I have that information, Yuriko is probably worth 2 to 2.5 damage per turn cycle. Plus just the ability to draw me into more interaction. That's just a polluted delta. I guess since I revealed that, I'll put that out there. And then I can put another 4/4 into play. Which overall is really strong right now, because that's 4, 8, 9, potentially the last point of damage off the Yuriko trigger. Notably, this will shut the Flooded Strand off from being able to fetch, making something like a Daze slightly better than it otherwise would be. Alright. Opponent is dead. On the draw, do I want, like, Strix or Cut? I don't think so. I think the way that I've sideboarded is fine. My hand has a Thoughtseize and a Force of Will. I'll be keeping this. I need more mana. But otherwise I have most of the rest of what I'm looking for. Notably, I am probably going to be fetching myself off of blue mana. And then my first 2 turns become Thoughtseize and Changeling Outcast. But, like, blue lands are great, and Retrofitter Foundries are great. Surgical Extraction's probably fine after a Thoughtseize too. I think this hand has enough going for it that I don't mulligan it. Hand's great. Let's go. See how good opponent's hand is. If I were to guess what they did, what did Ponder do? What did Ponder do? Okay, Ponder shuffled. That's okay. Let's get rid of the Force of Will. I have left my opponent with a hand that, like, objectively speaking, does nothing. Now, I just need to get a threat into play, and then turn that threat into Yuriko. And if I can start burying my opponent in cards, I have a very real way of taking down this game. So next turn, Ornithopter becomes a Yuriko, and then Changeling Outcast triggers off the Yuriko. Or other way around, Yuriko triggers off the Changeling Outcast. Do I just force that? I know my opponent's hand is very bad. I think I just force that. It's awkward because, like, forcing a show and tell is so important, but if I can just stick my opponent with these cards, that's real good. Brainstorm here can also help set up Yuriko. I think I'm okay with firing off a Brainstorm and looking for a Daze. Alright. My opponent also just could get Brainstorm locked here. In which case, life is real bad for them. Alright, that is not the case. Can I play this land? No. I could draw a land with Yuriko. A black producing land specifically. Because I get 2 triggers. And if the second card down is a black producing land, I get to cast Thoughtseize. I don't hate the Brazen Borrower. That means I have a pitch card for Force of Will. That 5 damage off the Force of Will Yuriko thing was clutch. Not bad. Not bad at all. Don't think I play that pre-combat. I think I'm just gonna see what happens with these triggers. And there's a theoretical world where my opponent dies to like a Force of Will flip here, but since I have seen 2 of my Force of Wills already, that's somewhat unlikely. Oh? Well, my opponent sure went to 1. And we got there. I'd like to thank Force of Will for this victory. Thank you, Force of Will Yuriko combo. BFFs forever. Okay, I'm on the draw here with a hand that's a little tricky to evaluate. I have like a great set of resources here. I really need more land. I can't cast this for black on turn 1. I still think I'm going to keep this one. Like I have Island, I have Ponder to search for the other land. I've got a Brainstorm to kind of smooth things out if it looks like some of this stuff isn't going to be good. It looks like we're likely playing against humans. Take that back. Looks like we're playing against Nick Fit. In which case, some of the clunkiness of this hand is totally undone by a Cabal Therapy on their end. I get therapied. Will my opponent name Retrofitter Foundry? I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. How big are my metaphorical cojones here? Are they big enough to Fatal Push Veteran Explorer, get Swamp Island, play Changeling Outcast, and Retrofitter Foundry? Are they that big? It's a hell of a turn one. Like, I just start with a 4/4, then can, like, cast a ninja afterwards. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I don't do that. I sure as hell am thinking about it. But the Cavern of Souls is just, like, making me a wee bit uncomfortable as to whether or not I should actually kill that Veteran Explorer. Like, I don't know what sort of crazy uncounterable thing could come down later that I need to Fatal Push. If I just, like, blow that on the Veteran Explorer, it feels awkward. Okay. So that'll get the Phyrexian Tower to sacrifice the Veteran Explorer. The Cavern of Souls is weirding me out a little bit. I don't... Oh, are all the Rectors humans? If all the Rectors are humans, maybe that makes sense that way. Yeah, I think they are. Like human clerics. That's uncounterable. What's going on? I brainstorm in response and try to deal with that. Confirm this is a human, right? Yeah, that's a human. Human cleric, I was right. Hmm. Yeah, I think I'm going to be a little bit too slow here. One of my ninjas, and I don't know which one. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't have like a stifle or anything that just gets to stop that stuff, and it's uncounterable due to the Cavern of Souls. Just happening, so I guess I need to kill my opponent. Quickly at that. Ponder now. I will ponder now. I guess Brazen Borrower is probably something that ends up being pretty good to find. How does he do it? How does he do it? I think I put Retrofitter Foundry into play because of the potential of Ugin off of this. I guess another line I had was... Oh, no, that line's not good. Never mind. All right. Do the thing. I don't want surgicals for the post-sideboard games for sure versus this deck. Yep. The rough spot is because of this Phyrexian Tower. If I just bounce the Ugin back to their hand, I don't really do what I want to do, huh? They just like Phyrexian Tower, sack the Recruiter, and it's back. I can fetch, kill Recruiter, bounce Ugin. Play Changeling, convert it into a 4/4. It is colorless. Alright. Like, I have a plan here. It's an awkward plan. But it's a plan. I have an extra mana I could have pondered. Do I still ponder? Maybe I still ponder. Finding Ornithopter... Well... That's super interesting. Alright. So now that Cling to Dust can potentially exile another Rector. Not exactly stoked about it, because like I'm tapped out right now, and I feel like I have a lot to do with my mana over the next few turns anyway. What is this? Oh. Yeah, not great. I don't think I get to deal 15 points of damage in 2 turns. And don't have Abrupt Decays. I used my bounce spell. Do I have any other way to get that out of play? Not in a game 1. So I just need a lot of gas. Yeah, I don't know, they just grab, like, Overwhelming Splendor, unless it's in their hand, and then all my stuff's 1/1s. I don't see the easy way out here with that Ugin still in hand. I guess I have to play, like, Overwhelming Splendor is in their hand. Is 3 mana for Brazen Borrower, 1 mana for a Cling to Dust if necessary. I think I'm dead unless Overwhelming Splendor is in their hand. I guess there is also a possibility they don't have Overwhelming Splendor. No, there it is. It's so good. And now my Retrofitter Foundry is off. And I'm going to pay 3 mana for a 1/1. And then my opponent is going to grab Curse of Death's Hold. And I'm a goner. Guess I can cycle. Oh. Don't cycle that. I think I'm just dead this game. Why do you need Night of Autumn? Like, that's off. Yeah, I'm just waiting a turn cycle here to see if they do indeed have Curse of Death's Hold. Then maybe beyond that, I should wait one more to see if they have Cruel Reality. They just chose not to cast that. I think I just need to fire this off for the sake of mana. Like, I don't really have anything that remotely resembles time. Yeah. Like, I can try to get a redraw for 4 mana, but I'm not really redrawing into anything that's all that good. Alright, is Cruel Reality just chilling in your hand? Is Curse of Death's Hold just chilling in your hand? I'm gonna go ahead and concede here. I could spend 2 more minutes trying to pretend like I have outs, but that's rough. Alright. How am I approaching this? My removal spells look kind of awkward, right? I want Surgicals and Thoughtseizes. The Cavern's probably a one of, so my counterspells are probably better as a whole than they were that game. I think I'm gonna get rid of the Fatal Pushes. I think I'll keep the Murderous Cut, though. Like, it's very possible that there's something in there that I want to have an out to at some point in the game. Now I need 2 more cuts. Baleful Strix is slow, and I don't really need the death-touching body. I think that's gonna go. Really, Last Hope becomes better when my opponent is giving me mana. I don't know, maybe holding up the Cling to Dust is too clunky, and I can't really just do that. I don't know. Like, when one of those Rector triggers goes off, I pretty much die, though. Not literally, but real close. Yeah. When in doubt, just trim something and don't think too hard about it. This is a hell of an aggressive hand. I don't have the ability to get more mana, but hopefully I won't need it. My opponent is going deep on the mulligan. This Thoughtseize is going to be great. So the real question here is, do I actually lead on Thoughtseize, or do I lead on making a 4/4 on turn 1? I think with my opponent on 5, I just take my turn to Thoughtseize them. There's just such a high chance that I can turn their hand into a non-functional hand. Get the living-ish out of there. Alright. I have finally shocked myself. Note, I'm choosing not to, like, start drawing cards this turn, because I just want to have 8 power in play against my opponent who has mulligan to 5. Yes? You can make very good arguments either way here. I think I'm going to go with the Thopter. Because if I get a basic swamp here, I can put this in for the Changeling Outcast next turn and then recast the Changeling Outcast. Okay, this one first, then this one. Alright, so short of the Pernicious Deed style cards, I should be in pretty good shape. I have a very fast clock. I can bounce something that gets into play. My opponent doesn't have double green right now to, like, play something and then crop rotation afterwards. Plus my opponent is just on a 2-turn clock. And I get to draw a bunch of cards. This is just 4 cards here. Just play a land and pass. If my opponent plays a creature, I just bounce it with Petty Theft. And if they play something that I really need to answer on the stack, I have Brainstorm for that. Nice. On the draw, I don't like Days as much. Not like my replacements are great. I could try to back to basics to punish my opponent's awkward mana base. Because they do have a bunch of things like Cavern of Souls and Phyrexian Tower. I think I'm just going to submit as is, though. Like, while Days isn't the most reliable thing in the world, especially on the draw, I don't hate having access to one of them in a game. Yeah, this is solid. This time around, my opponent's keeping on 7, though, so it'll be a little bit harder. Yep. The information here is pretty darn valuable for my opponent. That one of Murderous Cut came back, unfortunately. Right. I will take their one castable card. Sort of an interesting keep on their end. I don't know if I would have kept that one. Like, if they miss on the land, they very well might just die on the spot effectively. Okay. I mean, that's a pretty good rip. They're still stuck on one land, though. This does mean, though, that if they rip hotter than the sun and they just, like, grab the Veteran Explorer off the top now, things are more problematic for me. I'm looking for an Ornithopter or a Changeling to turn into a 4/4 and pressure my opponent ASAP. Do I daze for the sake of dazing? I don't think so. Let's let them hit land drop 3, though. It could be a Cavern of Souls. I don't know. If I have access to, like, one real hard counterspell, I don't know that I get to counter one of their 3 Living Wishes when I have no pressure in play. Okay. I mean, there's the threat. There's a 4/4. Now, I do have to counter the next Living Wish. Unfortunately, this Living Wish is going to be played around a daze. Oh, maybe this means I should have just countered the one last turn. And then I have the out of... And then I have the out of drawing another blue card for the next Living Wish. Thoughtseize is great for me. Surgical is great for me. Brainstorm is great. Ponder's great. Ninjas are good. Go so far as great, but good. Now my opponent can resolve the Living Wish. Oh no, they're going for the Assassin's Trophy. Alright, relevant card off the top would be Gas. That's Gas. Thank you, opponent, for giving me the lands required to make this work. I had plenty of outs there, but I am also just incredibly happy that I hit one of them. Alright. The onslaught has stopped for now. I have my opponent dead in 2 attacks. Life gets awkward if my opponent plays a Rector. Then I can't really attack into it. I need something with evasion, or I need a Brazen Borrower to bounce it. Ooh, alright, opponent got a hot rip of their own. That's just going to trade with my construct. Will they chump block? Seems like a fine situation to chump block. It just denies me a card. Nice. Although this does leave me what awful thing is waiting in their hand. I have lethal next turn. I can ponder and try to find a piece of interaction. Ponder for ponder. Ponder for ponder is fine. I don't really need to use my mana all that much right now because I'm just tapping Retrofitter Foundry. Don't know that I actually want any of this stuff. The unblockable thing's kind of cool, but I should be able to make flyers anyway. Alright, so this is it. This is the big turn. This This is the one that determines whether I just 3-2 or whether I 4-1 and come out ahead. Alright, there we go. End up 4-1ing here. Feels pretty good because the play points were running a little bit low. Alright, what do I think of Brian's list? Honestly, I think it feels pretty good. Like, obviously the days in sideboard should have been a force of negation, but like, you know, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to record a video. I felt like my mana base was stable in that, like, I very consistently had I was not taken off of my colors, and that's important. We did definitely get to just like free roll wastelands on the other side of the table multiple times throughout this league. Um, I think the biggest thing that I'm still not sure about, and I've played ninjas a few times, is like how aggressively should I be mulliganing? Because the difference between the best ninja hands and the average ninja hand is just so huge. Like when you're on these best hands and you just like make a 4/4 on turn 1 and turn 2 and sometimes turn 3 as well, it's just like absolutely bananas what you can do. And like when you just get to like play like Thoughtseize on 1 and Ornithopter, and then on turn 2 you like get a Yuriko in there and you start doing your thing. Like those hands are so good. And then you get a lot of the clunkers. And I'm not sure how you're supposed to treat like an average blue looking hand that just has like a couple of brainstorm ponders, a bunch of lands, and it doesn't quite do anything on its own yet. That's really unclear to me as of right now. And I'm sure that would become more clear over time. But I'm not quite there yet. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please throw me a like if you didn't already. That sort of thing helps me out a lot and keeps me motivated to make content. And if you're really enjoying my content, please consider doing a donation deck list or something else to support my content in the future. Have a great rest of the day and keep enjoying Legacy. This league was a lot of fun, as have most of the ones I've been playing recently. See ya!